Oopsie, sorry.
No worries. And then I guess I'm a blast. So hi, my name is Jasmine Cervantes. I'm a second year animal science major here at UC Davis. I'm also from SoCal, and a fun fact, which I just discovered yesterday because I finally counted them. Since the pandemic started, I've completed 12 oil paintings just for fun.
Wow. 12 oil paintings. Holy moly.
Yeah, but don't think that they're huge. Some are big, some are tiny.
Oh, I want to see them,
No, I
Jasmine. Now I'm curious. I want to see them. All right. Well, good morning,
We'll have a
everybody.
meeting and I'll show you.
Or good afternoon. I'm sorry. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Harold Stewart Carballo. I'm the Regional Assistant Director for Region 2, which is basically all the schools that we serve in North Sacramento and one school in middle school in South Sacramento. I've been on campus now for 21 years. My students know me as Mr. H at all the schools that I work at, and I'll be here for a little bit this afternoon. Of course, I'll leave you in the capable hands of these amazing college students who work as student outreach assistants for the early academic outreach program. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. We are a small group, and I think it's a good thing. I wish it was larger, but it's actually kind of a good thing and a real opportunity to be able to have kind of a real quality opportunity to kind of go back and forth and ask any questions that you may have about the topic that they're going to present to you. So welcome.
right. Let's go continue. So something that today we're gonna go over the different housings and different types of housing that you all have in college. So there's a select few of different housing options. Obviously, if you stay close to home, we do also consider that. But we're also going to go over navigating the different college systems today. So there's the semester system and the quarter system. So we'll introduce you to those two, say the pros and cons of each. And then the Let's Get Real aspect of it, that's for next Saturday's session. So if y'all are interested in that one, we'll be going over different struggles that college students go through in college, kind of providing a more realistic perspective of it rather than just a book answer. We'll be speaking on our own experiences of them. So if y'all are interested in that, stay tuned for next week.
So just before we get started with our topics that were just mentioned, I just wanted to go over some ground rules, some common Zoom etiquette that I know you guys are all aware of, but we got to go over them again. So first, we really do encourage students to turn on their mics just to ask questions, but of course, please stay muted with anybody else is talking just so that we're not interrupting anybody. Also, raise your hand if you have any questions, comments, or concerns throughout any part of the presentation, and then we'll get that addressed. Also, feel free to use the chat respectfully, please. We're not going to tolerate any bad behavior, but I know you guys will be good. I also wanted to mention, don't forget to participate because we really want you to get the most out of today. So ask a lot of questions and have fun, of course. And as Ariana mentioned, for safety reasons, if the Zoom does get hacked, we're going to have to close it down. So we just wanted to make you guys aware of that.
Alrighty.
So we're going to get started with the first topic, which is housing and the different types of housing. So I'm going to be going over the first one, which was briefly mentioned, that living at home is completely an amazing option because it is very affordable. So if you are going to be staying with your parents, there can be shared utilities, right? So you might not have to pay for Wi-Fi, you might not have to pay for doing your laundry at your parents or even paying for groceries. So it can be affordable in that sense. So if you are living with your parents, it's most likely that you're going to commute because I don't think you would be able to live at home and then go to a school that's 6 hours away. So it relatively would have to be somewhere pretty close. So if you're going to be commuting, it can be from, with your car, if you have a car, you can walk if it's that close, bike, any other sort of transportation. I put in a little example that I wanted to go over with you guys of what commuting can look like, just because my brother was a commuter. So he commuted from UCI to Anaheim, from Anaheim to UCI and back. And for him, he didn't have the best experience commuting just because it did get very pricey with gas. It also took him about 2 hours with traffic. He had to basically formulate his schedule depending on when he knew he could be on campus. So he tended to put his classes really packed together just because he didn't want to waste time, 2 hours in traffic, or go on campus if he's only going to be there for an hour. So it kind of gave him limited flexibility when picking his classes. But I also have another friend that's currently commuting, doing the same commute, and she's having a really good time. So it can either go either way, depending. Another possible con is just perhaps maybe feeling like you're missing out of, quote unquote, the college experience, maybe having that limited freedom because you are living at home. But I just wanted to wrap this up by saying it really is what works best for you. If it really is more affordable to be at home with your parents, then I would say that it's definitely an option.
Next up, we have on-campus dorms. So on-campus dorming, I believe the three of us actually did it. Ariana, you dormed as well. Yeah, so this one will have like a little section right after where you could ask questions. But with dorming, obviously it's very encouraged for your first year. Students who don't dorm their first year do have a higher graduation rate, I believe, and retention rate in their school because they're so close to campus and getting to classes is easy. Just the resources that are available. But as for applying for dorming, it is a pretty easy application and it's very convenient. It's through your school. And for your first year, you typically also have guaranteed housing, depending on the university that you go to. And one really cool thing about dorming is that you don't have to worry about cooking or buying groceries. You can buy groceries for like snacks or like any little bites that you want to have throughout the day. But as for your actual meals, they're completely made ready for you. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, even dessert sometimes. That comes accompanied with a meal plan. And we'll talk about those pricing later on. But one of the best parts on top of the meals is that all your classes are right next to you. Depending on what your major is in college, you'll have more localized centers on campus. So for instance, at Davis, we have one residence area called Tercero. And for STEM students, there's a lecture hall that we call the SILEC, and it's literally right behind the dorm. So they literally just have to roll out of bed, throw on like a hoodie, do some jeans, just walk right out, and their class is right there. They don't have to do that extra commute that Jasmine was talking about earlier. They just have to get up and boom, they're there. On top of this, extracurricular activities are very easy to get to. They're usually like downstairs in your little communications areas. There's even like right outside your dining commons. There's a lot of extracurriculars just going on all the time, especially those first few weeks. There's orientation going on and all these fun activities that everyone's throwing your way to kind of get you involved on campus. So being in the dorms, you have really good chances of getting into a club. It's easier to get to these clubs because usually they're later at night. They're usually like 7 p.m. that they have meetings. So you don't have to like stay on campus all day long. You can just go. And one of the cons about this is kind of what I just mentioned, but this is only kind of based on your preference. You're always going to be on campus because you're going to sleep on campus because that's where dorms usually are. And then you're also there for your classes, your discussion sections, any extracurriculars. So for some people that could get tiring, but other people think it's great. They like it. It's very convenient for them. It makes things easier for them. But one kind of universal con of the dorming is that you do have a limited amount of space. So if you look at the picture we provided right here, that's a double room. And over here at UC Davis, that's one of three options of dorming. We have singles, doubles, and triples. So that's essentially their entire living space. They have to have all of their living, like there's all of their storage is just confined to this little room. You don't even get your own restroom. You have to usually share a restroom with like 5 other people. So that's one kind of con. You can't take all of your things with you. You kind of have to pick and choose what you're going to take to college. But yeah. Do you all have any questions regarding dorming? The three of us did it, so if you have any specific questions, we could answer those as well. You can put it in the chat, unmute yourself, whatever you're most comfortable with.
And I know that some of us might actually have questions about costs, but I know you're going to talk about that in some more detail so you kind of understand the costs and how they vary as well. One of the things I wanted to add was that a lot of students are wondering, is this something that is required? Do you have to live on campus? And it's not required. I think Matthew might have mentioned that earlier. It's not required, but it's highly encouraged. It's highly encouraged because living in a dormitory is part of your learning experience. It can be stressful, but it's done that way on purpose. We don't want to stress you out, but it's done that way on purpose for you to actually connect with people, because you go to college for 2 reasons, right? You get the degree, but you also meet people. You want to connect with people, start developing your professional networks. That's the whole point. And as you start getting used to, like, living the adult 101 lifestyle, right? You have to get used to managing your money, managing your space, learning all those things. It just kind of comes with basically making the transition from living at home to not living at home.
And then there was a question in the chat from Katie asking if there's a curfew. So there's not necessarily a curfew. You could leave your dorm or come to your dorm whatever time you want. The one thing that they do have is quiet hours. They're usually earlier on from Monday to Thursday. But for the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they're usually they're later on in the evening. So because they're taking into account like it's the weekend, people want to go out. But during the week, since it is during the week and everyone has like lectures or exams, especially for, during midterms and finals, they do have earlier quiet hours just to make sure that everyone's comfortable and no one's getting disrupted from their schoolwork. Any other questions? If not, we could go ahead and move on. All righty, sounds good.
So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about on-campus apartments. So at the end, there will also be a Q&A slide. So feel free to ask me any specific questions you have because I'm currently doing that. I'm in my on-campus apartment as we speak. So the first point I wanted to highlight was that it is a little bit easier to find this type of housing and also apply for it. So I did dorm as well my first year, and my second year, they basically sent out an email and they were like, if you're dorming right now, we're going to guarantee you on-campus apartments. So I took that because I thought that was going to be easier for me. It seemed really easily accessible, so I applied for that. And it can be a little less stressful in my opinion because you won't have to be hunting down certain roommates or dealing with utilities. That's all kind of prepackaged for you. So one of the cons is that one of the pros is that it can be really close to campus, but then also one of the cons is that it can also not be super close to the campus. So for example, the dorms are sitting like right on the campus, but my on-campus apartments are like pretty far from on campus, but they're still considered on-campus apartments because there's some facilities that I live around. So they kind of scammed me a little, but it's okay. It's not too far. Also, the lease is actually signed through the university. So I also put a bullet point a little lower that it's quarterly payments. So once again, because it is signed with the university, it's not like you're paying monthly rent. So since it's quarterly, it's only going to be 3 times out of the full academic year. So I wanted to highlight that as well, because sometimes that might be a little better for some people. It's also a simpler process to find roommates. So they do the sort of roommate match, sort of like they do in the dorm. So I didn't have any roommates in mind from the beginning because I didn't really know anybody. So I just filled out this quick survey that they have in the portal when you actually apply for the on-campus apartments. And they sort of match you up with another person that they think will best suit you based on their responses to the survey. Or if you already have somebody in mind, you can actually request them. So if you guys are both planning to live on that same on the same on-campus apartments, then you can just put their name, send in that request, and they will pair you up. It's also furnished, which was one of the greatest pros for me because like I said, I'm from SoCal, and that is 6 hours away from Davis. So I did not want to bring up my bed, my nightstand, everything. So furnished basically means that these on-campus apartments already come with furniture in it. So when I moved in, the bed was already there, the nightstand was there, a desk, a chair, really it had everything. So that was one of the greatest pros I wanted to highlight as well. Similarly to the dorm, you can also have a meal plan, but what I really liked is this time you get to pick if you want the meal plan. So it's not really enforced, you have the option to. So basically how that works is you can access the dining commons and you can pick out your meal plan. So this will just get added on top of the payments that you're already making quarterly for your apartment. And then one possible con that I also wanted to highlight was that it is a shared space. So for example, it can kind of feel like you're living back in the dorms because the laundromats are a shared space. There's the common areas that are also a shared space. So maybe if you're not so much into that and you want to feel like things are more yours, you can find an off-campus apartment, but that is something that everybody might not like. But yeah, that's the last thing I wanted to highlight for a con. And then also, if you guys have any questions about on-campus apartments, it can really be anything like how I'm liking it so far, if I'm gonna live here again, how it felt when I moved in. So you can type in the chat or you can turn on your mic. Okay, awesome. So the first question, do you have your own kitchen? Yes, I share it with my roommate, but of course, if you apply for just a single room, you will still have your own kitchen. And that was one of the biggest pros that I was looking for, just because I finally wanted to be able to cook. It's more affordable. It can be. I order out a lot. I'm still working on that. But I think it's a huge pro to have your own kitchen, because personally, I didn't really like the dining commons food. They didn't have as many
Jasmine, we know
vegetarian
that you are the
options.
Uber Eats queen. You are the Uber Eats
I
queen.
am, but I'm trying not to be. I'm trying not to be. But yeah, so that was a great question. You do have your own kitchen. Loving when I do use it. And also, Katie asked, do you have a roommate? And if I do you like it? I do have a roommate. She's actually here right now, so I do love my roommate. Yeah, she's really awesome. She actually was a random roommate as well. So like I said, I didn't really know anybody else that was going to be living here. So we kind of just got paired up together. And it has been going like well so far. Like, I'm not even lying for this presentation. Like, we have our boundaries, which is I think really important to set with your roommate, of like, oh, who's going to be purchasing this? Who's going to be purchasing that? Asking if you can have guests over. So although it is like a shared space and I guess I don't have complete freedom, I have enough that I'm comfortable with. Like, for example, I have my own room and she has her own room. So roommates with separate rooms sharing the same space, if that makes sense. Great question, by the way. Thank you for asking. If there's not any other questions, we can move on, but feel free to type that in the chat or turn your mic.
So now we're going to talk about apartments off campus, which I'm currently living in an apartment right here. I have like my own furniture that I've decorated with my friends. I've been living off campus since my second year, and this is my second apartment. So I've had, a couple run-ins with like looking for like the best deals. So what comes with apartments that are off campus is definitely more freedom to make my space the way I would love to make it. So having, wall decor, possibly painting the walls if we'd like to, and just making our space more personalized, because at times in the dorms and on campus you kind of are limited to making holes. We are here as well, but like at the end of the day, whenever we do like finish the lease, I've been living here for 2 years now, so there's holes here and there, but it's okay because we made our home feel a little bit more homey. And the one thing is that it can at times be farther from campus. My freshman year I lived on campus. My second year I lived about 20 minutes away from campus, because it was my first time looking for apartments. So I thought, me and my friends thought that was the best deal. But as we started getting more familiar with the different types of prices, different types of square footage of apartments, we ended up finding this deal where we live in now, which is now a 5-minute bus ride away. So it could very, very well vary depending on the apartment. So it's very good to look early for apartments. At times, the season to look for apartments starts like in March, and then you start looking from there, and then you apply around like April and May, so you can move in September whenever you do decide to move into an apartment. The one thing for sure is that you get to choose your roommates and who you surround yourself with more. So at times, if you get paired up with a roommate, you don't really get to decide, the habits they already have. So with my friends, we've been friends for 4 years now. So I kind of know their habits and I choose to live with them because the way we like kind of coexist is very nicely in a very nice environment. So that's how I get to choose my environment, as well as also deciding who buys what, having certain boundaries, just so our living situation goes very smoothly and doesn't interfere with our personal or emotional or physical health. And so we also have to determine a lot of what we eat. So I have to cook more. I do also eat out just like Jasmine. Don't get me wrong. I sometimes our kitchen is not used, but it's because we're all very busy with school, work, and so many different things that are going on. So it's also good to note that as you start going to college, your time will be sometimes spent more at school, and you will have to maybe meal prep, or maybe eat out or order certain foods, find those deals. So, whether you're moving to a dorm apartment or an on-campus apartment, your responsibilities and time management will be more crucial. And also just the possible cons at times is that having to cook as well as having to buy furniture. But however, even though at times it took me, I think, 2 months to find a couch, we ended up finding a deal. We have a two-set couch with that ended up being $20, very new. It wasn't like, those like wonky couches. We actually got a really good deal from a very nice family on Facebook Market. So don't be very nervous about having to look for furniture, whether it's anywhere that you decide to move in with, because there's always Facebook Market. Um, there's also so many different apps where you could buy things. So definitely don't be nervous whenever that does happen. And yes, yay for couch deal, because sometimes couches go for 200 because college students also sell their things and they'll try to finesse you. So it's like good to look out for things like that. So at times, like maybe even finding friends that will give you things for free, as well as in the dorms is a big plus. What like the dorms where Jasmine may live. I once went with my friends who sort of like apartments like that or on campus things, and students tend to take their furniture and throw it out for free. So it's good to scavenge for furniture that way too. So there's so many ways. Um, yeah, couches can be very expensive. Don't get me wrong. I was looking for like new couches. No, they're so expensive, but you could find deals for like $30. You just gonna wash it. But yeah, definitely apartments. And just I also have a roommate, so I share a room with someone, and it's been great because there's more living space. I have my own TV. That was my first big girl purchase when I moved here. My TV. Yeah, the dorms didn't have a connection.
I kind of wanted to add a kind of funny example of that.
Yes.
So I also live on an off-campus apartment. So we found a couch fairly quickly. We found it on Facebook Market. Ended up being free. So that was the best possible deal you could get. I mean, $3.99. Who does not love free stuff, especially when it's a couch and it's like a full size couch too. So that was a really good deal. But one thing that me and my roommates kind of struggled to find was stools for our table, because we didn't have to buy a table. Our apartment kind of came with one. It's like attached to the wall, but it didn't come with chairs, so we had to find that. But we couldn't find one for the longest time. We moved in September, and we didn't have official stools until January, like last month, January. Before that, we were literally sitting on a foldable chair and a lawn chair, lower than our table, but we made it work. Um, Finding furniture can be very hard. Um, it can also get really expensive really quickly, because that's one thing that we were struggling with, because stools were like kind of expensive for no reason. But other than that, like as long as you like really do search and like are like a dog on Facebook Market, just on it all the time, like making sure you're refreshing it and like, getting all those deals, you can very easily find really good deals on couches, desks, literally anything. But do you all have any questions?
Literally anything about roommates, sharing rooms, sharing pots and pans, food, cooking wise. I didn't learn how to cook until I moved out of the dorm. So, and I've been, I'm healthy. I learned eventually along the way. And if any questions do pop up, y'all will have another chance to ask questions at the end. So don't worry, you can write them down. It's okay.
Yeah. If there's no questions, I think we could go ahead and move on to the next section. All right.
Okay, so now there's a variety of ways to live on campus. Well, whenever you do decide to go to university, as y'all seen, apartments on campus, apartments off campus, dorms. Now, this is something I had recently learned in the last 2 to 3 years about co-op housing. So it's called cooperative housing, and these houses tend to be just like a regular house that you might walk by the street, and in reality, it's a community. So this is student housing cooperatives are basically designed to lower housing costs for students, but while also providing an educational and community environment for students. So it's basically like a themed housing. So sometimes it could be more focused on environmental sustainability, on being allies for a certain community, or maybe even like Latinx or Filipino housing. So it's a very base community housing. And definitely their number one objective is to lower housing costs, because housing can be expensive, whether it's at the dorms, on campus, literally anything, especially in this economy, it could be expensive. So that's their main goal. And at times, in order for you to have that reduced housing cost, you'll have to do community service work in return for a couple weekends. And it's great. Like, you're meeting other people, you're networking, you're getting community service hours, you're getting exposure to different communities, all while also saving money and getting a great experience while you're in college. And one thing is, it's once again more space and freedom. Although you will be sharing a lot of common spaces with any of the housing, it can be limited at times with what you can bring, what you can't bring. Just being aware of different people's boundaries with anywhere that you'll be living. But this is a place where it's very community based, as I've said many times, and at times it could be a great way. I have like an example right there. My friend Alexandro goes to Berkeley, which is one of the universities with the most co-op housing opportunities, and he's had a great time. He has his own room, his own space, but he's also meeting so many people along the way. So honestly, it's just a very community oriented home with many opportunities. Just at times the houses can be a little old because a lot of it is nonprofit funding, but it's also, a great way to meet other people. Another option for housing as well. So if y'all have any questions, let me know about any co-op housing, because it could be kind of like interesting. Like, I've never heard of co-op housing until recently, but if not, we could hold those questions till the end.
Give us a quick second before we move on for any questions. But definitely, co-op housing kind of sucks that some schools don't offer it as much, but it is definitely a really good experience if your school does offer it. It's just nice to have people to call your community within our community. Most times, like a new community. So like me and Jasmine moving up. Oh, Ariana too. All three of us, we all came from SoCal, so like being able to have that community would just be like so nice. If there's no questions, I'll go ahead and move on. And then this last option is not typically taken on by college students, but there are a few examples of where students do this. So renting out a house. So this one could be a little bit more tricky to get, only because the housing market doesn't really align with the apartment market. Because so for instance, in Davis, since we are a college town, a lot of apartments do advertise to college students, and they kind of align it to be at the same time every single year. So it's kind of like getting to that point already. It's around like March. That's when apartments really start advertising like, hey, we're leasing for next year. But for houses, it's a lot different because these aren't necessarily like, well, they're not apartment complexes, so they don't go by like a yearly lease. They could go by like a 5-year lease, a 2-year lease. Like these vary a lot. But in getting a house, you do have the most liberty to decorate because you have an entire house to yourself. Well, not to yourself, but you and whoever you move in with, like an entire house. No boundaries, like just the entire house. Like it's nice. You have more than enough storage space. In apartments, obviously, like you're like, in a complex, you don't have like a garage, you don't have like extra closet space. For instance, in my apartment, we only have like one closet that we have to share. And then like, we use our laundry room as storage as well, just for that extra storage. But other than that, we'll have to like put things under our bed or in our closet as storage as well. But in a house, you have like a garage sometimes. You have extra closets or just a lot more space in your room as well. And then with that extra space that comes with the house, having company over is also kind of more nice and comfortable for them. Same in an apartment, if you have people over, sometimes it might feel a little bit cramped because of the size of the apartment. Also, kind of figure out where they're going to sleep. It could be a little bit complicated, but in a house, like you have space. They can sleep on the couch. They can sleep on like unfoldable bed that you can pull out, or an inflatable bed, and just nice. But one really big con about this is that rent is likely going to be expensive unless you find a really good deal. But you're renting a house, so with that extra space does come a higher bill, which you could obviously lower with like having more roommates, um, sharing a room with someone else to lower it even more. But renting a house, not too common, but definitely a possibility for you all. Do y'all have any questions about houses? No. All right. If there's no questions, we could go ahead and move on to the cost of housing.
Yeah, so now we'll be talking about the different costs, whether it's at a semester or at a quarter system school. And I will be specifically talking about, for example, UC Davis, which is a quarter system. Many of the quarter system schools handle their payments the same way, and the way they do, they divide the two different types of payments you would need to do. So the number one is your room and board. So your room is divided by 3 payments because there's 3 quarters. So it's not just one big payment. It's not the whole 13 annually for a single room. So you do have 3 options for dorms. So it's a single occupancy, so just you and yourself, and that tends to be around 13,000. So 4,000, around 4,000 quarterly, and if not, a double with another roommate, if you're comfortable like that, and that would be 11,000, which you can see already the difference between a double and a single. And then a triple with 2 other roommates, which I did when I was a freshman, and it's great. You still have your own desk, your own closet, your own space. It is a little tight, but we're not always in the same room unless we're sleeping. So it's great because I chose that option simply because it was more affordable to me, and it lowered the cost a lot. So you can see the difference between 4,456 for a single occupancy, and for a triple 3,351. So you can already see the difference in pricing if you want to stay a little bit more on the affordable side. And so then on another payment, another added cost is your residential meal plans. So they feed you, so don't worry, you don't have to cook when you're dorming. So for my meal plans that for our meal plans that we have at UC Davis, you have 2 options. You have the 7-day meal plan, so you get fed every single day at any time of the day. I would definitely go 4 times a day at times for the dining commons, just because I was always hungry. So there you have that option. Typically at UC Davis, other schools, they have swipes. So you have like 100 swipes a quarter or a semester. Here at UC Davis specifically, we can go in at any time of the day, as many times as we want. And so because of that, I decided to choose a 5-day meal plan because I knew I would get tired of the food. And at times, there's not many options. And then as you go on with being at UC Davis or at any other school, for a whole academic year, you're going to get tired of the menu. And so you might not want to go all the time. So it was a more affordable way that I chose was doing the 5-day meal plan. So I had leverage on, deciding to eat out on the weekend. So the weekends was when I wasn't being fed by the school. So that's when I went to Taco Bell for that 5-day munchie meal, or I cooked at the downstairs kitchen area that we all shared. And so you can already see the difference as 6,291 annually compared to 4,635 for just a 5-day meal plan. So that's already a big difference and less of a cost if you want to go that affordable side. But if you don't know how to cook, you could always learn, do some simple cooking. Or if you don't, you just want to eat at the DC and not have that worry, by all means, you'll have that 7-day meal plan. And the good thing about any school is that they allow you to change your meal plan as you go on. So if your first quarter you do 7 days, but then for the next one you're like, maybe I want to change it, I'm not really eating as much, you could definitely change it so you're not stuck. And that goes along with also dorming. At times, if you want to be in a triple and something goes on and you don't feel comfortable, you can do a roommate exchange. So don't feel like you're confined, you're paying, so they will cater to you because once again, you're paying and you're being there and they want you to be healthy and safe in the environment that you're putting yourself in. So that's something with the quarter systems and any UC. So you can have a single, double, a triple, a 7-day meal plan, or a 5-day meal plan. If y'all have any questions. Oh yeah.
I did want to add something too. With the prices, you do also get extra help from your financial aid sometimes too. So, for instance, so for me and Jasmine, it's a little bit more complicated because COVID. Everyone just was alone in their dorm, so we didn't have like the roommate aspect of it. But financial aid definitely did help us a lot with paying our dorms. We didn't have to pay the full amount that is right there. We did have to pay, but it was just like a reduced price because of our financial aid. So also like depending on how much financial aid you get, you won't have to pay that entire thing in full. But did y'all have any questions? Now we can go ahead and move on to the next example. So the next example that I'll talk about is Sac State, which is really local to you all. So for this one, we're looking at the 8-month leasing agreement, which typically a lot of on-campus housing doesn't house you during winter break. They'll send you back home unless you pay a little bit extra. But for this one, if you compare the double room, that first line, it's only 7,744 compared to the 11,000 from UC Davis. So there is definitely like a decrease in the amount. And then that price is also then split up into fall and spring because they are a semester system. So you'd be looking at like $3,000, almost $4,000 every semester on top of like your other tuition and other school costs. And then a single would be $8,000 roughly, and that's split up into 4,000. So you can see like the kind of decrease a little bit, but kind of like similarity because you are paying only twice instead of 3 times, like in a core system. And then same thing with the other one. They also have a triple room. So there, and then there is like the deluxe options, but I won't get too much into that because that's just a little bit extra. For the triple rooms, you can see it goes down to 6,000, which broken up is 3,000. So it's kind of roughly around the same amount. It looks a little bit cheaper because it is only broken up into 2 semesters instead of 3 quarters, but you're paying around the same price. And then on top of that, you also have your meal plan cost. So you have the gold plan where you have approximately 15 meals per week and then $75 of flex cash. I don't know if Ariana covered it, but with the meal plan from UC Davis, we also get $200 a quarter in Aggie cash. So Aggie cash you can use at the market, you can use at food trucks that come by, but you do get a little extra money on top of your meal plan. So if you do get tired of the dorm food, you could get snacks from the market or just a meal from the food trucks that they have because they have built food trucks on campus usually every single day. But moving on to the green plan, for the gold plan, sorry, it's around $5,000, 5,030, so just right over $5,000 broken up into 2, so that's around 2,500 every single semester that you're living on campus. The green plan, which is about 10 meals per week, so like 2 meals a day if you're going during the 5-day period. That one's going to be around $4,394, so 2,000 each semester. And then the independent plan, which is 8 meals per week plus $50 in cash, the flex cash. That one would be 3,446. This one's more if you want to make your own meals at the same time. So kind of like a mix of I could go to the DC and get food ready, but I also want to cook my own food in the dorming kitchen that's usually on the first floor. But yeah, do you all have any questions about Sac State? No, go ahead and go to the next slide.
So I'm going to continue to keep covering the green, which is the on-campus apartments. So here are basically the fees. They're very similar to the residence halls fees, but I think one of like the biggest differences that when you see that it says single, when it says double, when it says studio, this is like a shared space. So a studio would mean that you are not sharing the space with anybody. It's your own, little studio. It's just you. I'm doing a single, which means that I get my single room, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's just me, right? So if you were like in a single in a dorm, then that would just be you. But a single for the on-campus just means I have a single room, right? Because I still have my roommate and she has her own single room, so that's a single. And then a double, right, would mean that you have a roommate sharing the same room. So it's 2 people in one room. And I think with the green, you can do up to, I believe it is 4, so like 2 separate rooms with 2 people each in them. And like I had said before, the meal plans are just like an additional thing if you want them. So they're not necessarily required. It's something that you can choose to add on top. So similarly to the dorms, you have the 7-day or like the 5-day option, but a new addition like with the on-campus apartments is that they let you select 9 meals a week. So that's something new that the dorms like didn't necessarily have, which all of the meal plans, once again, like Matthew said, include like the $200 Aggie cash. So you would get the same amount with the 9 meals a week. Like I said, I don't have this just because the apartments do come with a kitchen. And personally, I think it is a little cheaper just to cook, trying to order out, less like I said. But if you are on campus a lot and perhaps it is a little far, like I think I live like, I want to say like 13 minutes biking from campus. So maybe if I don't want to go out all the way to campus to go to the dining commons, then, you know, that's what I was thinking. That's why I didn't purchase it. But if you're on campus all the time and that's what benefits you, then yeah, I would say definitely get a meal plan. And like I said, once again, that just gets added on top of the quarterly payments you're going to be making for your room. And something that wasn't on here that I wanted to bring up because you guys are adults that potentially drive was the parking. Because parking can get pretty pricey, right? Because now you're paying for your room quarterly, you're potentially paying for your meal plan quarterly, and also paying for parking. So I actually checked in with my roommate about this to ask her because she does have a car. I do not have a car. But she told me that she pays roughly to live here and put her car here $750. And there's 3 ways that can be split up. So you can pay that $750 all at once. You can pay it monthly. So that would be around like $63 a month. Or you can pay it quarterly. So that would be an additional $250 quarterly. So it really just depends. And you can outweigh the benefits of having a car. I mean, here at Davis, I primarily use my bike for everything. So I get out of paying that $750. But then when I need groceries, it becomes a little problem because I just have my bike. So that's up to you to decide. But just wanted to put that in there so you guys can keep in mind and have that at the back of your brain when you're deciding to bring a car, not to bring a car, or how much that could potentially cost on top of other costs.
And then another thing like regarding cars is that usually for your first year, at least at Davis and a few other UCs, they don't let first years bring a car on campus with them. If you have an off-campus apartment, you can feel free and bring it. But usually with like on-campus dorming, since parking is already a huge issue on campus, they usually don't let you bring your car. But if you were to bring your car for dorming, you would just have to pay for a parking permit. Davis does it a little bit differently. You have to pay daily through Park Mobile. It's like $3 a day, but you do have to pay that every single day if you don't want to get a ticket that could double very quickly. But depending on the school, they'll usually have like a parking pass, and parking passes, depending on its length, if it's like the whole entire school year or just like one semester or one quarter, it'll roughly be an added couple $100. Alrighty. Any questions for this one, by the way? No? All right.
So I'm also going to be talking about this slide, which is we just wanted to compare it to like another kind of well-known school out there, which is of course UCLA and their on-campus apartments. So once again, when you see this first row of the room portion, you can get pretty scared. And because this happened to my friend, she was asking me questions about, you know, breaking down how much she's gonna have to pay. And she was like, 10,000? Is that quarterly or is that like monthly? And I was like, it is quarterly. So do not forget, do not startle yourself. So basically just breaking down the prices for a 2-bedroom apartment. So 3 to 4 occupants. And this was for the previous year. So still pretty relevant. And I don't think much has changed within the upcoming year. And it basically just breaks down all the fees. So you'll have like a social fee, any additional, they do mention parking here, which I really like, which is why I wanted to mention parking in the other one, because this one had it. And parking is even more expensive at UCLA, $971. So just something to think about when you're picking out your roommates, dividing up those costs, and deciding where you want to live.
Yes, and then on the next slide, we'll me and Ariana will be talking about how much we pay. So I can go ahead and start. So for reference, this dorming and on-campus apartments are usually over, well, more dorming. Dorming is more over like a 9-month period. So that's what I'm referring to when I speak about these numbers. But for me personally, so I live in an apartment with 5 other people, so it's 6 of us in total in the apartment. Altogether, rent is about like $2,650, like $2,650. But divided by all of us, I pay around like $436. So over a 9-month period, that's only $3,924, which is roughly one of the quarter payments that we talked about for UC Davis at our doors. So versus what I pay in 9 months is what you would have to pay for in one quarter. So only like a 10-week period. So there's that into perspective as well. On-campus dorming, very convenient, but it is also very pricey.
So for my off-campus apartment cost, I live in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. So a lot of what I looked into when we were looking for apartment is just comparing the square footage, how big it is for the price, because at times apartments can be very bougie, so very amenities. So that's another thing you need to look into whenever you do decide to live off campus, is that apartments provide different amenities, so a gym, a pool, and those tend to be maybe sometimes a little bit costlier, or at times it could be the same price as one that doesn't have any amenities. So that's good into looking into. So I made sure that there was a laundry facility on the apartment, and that it was clean, and that it was closer to school. And so with that, we ended up finding a deal with I'll personally say I pay like $500 a month for like sharing my living space with 3 other individuals, like 2 in each room. So at times it could be very scary, like how can I pay? But my financial aid does cover my every month rent, and just not like maybe like Wi-Fi, my light bill. That's something I need to like kind of cover for. So luckily, if your family makes under, I believe, 30 to 50,000, I don't quote me, but you could look into like on the internet that depending on how much your family makes a year, the school will cover your tuition. And so with covering my tuition and everything else, it also helped cover for rent. So don't be very scared, like, oh, like I'm gonna have to live with my parents. No, luckily, FAFSA does help if you do qualify for that. And it's what's helped me a lot with managing my money and also covering the cost of living outside of campus. And it's been great. I love it. I have my own desk. I have tapestries. I've been personalizing my area just to make it my like little room. And it's been a great experience so far. You just need to budget your money for sure.
I didn't really talk about how big my apartment is. Sorry about that, but I live in a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, 1/2 restroom. Oh no, 2 bath. Yeah, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment with laundry in unit. And we also have a vanity. So it's just like a mirror and sink separate from a restroom, just like on its own in the hallway. So that's what comes in ours. And then we also have like a clubhouse. Apartments usually have that as well, where it's kind of just like a common room for everyone in the apartment to go to if they just want their own space. We also have a gym, which is nice. But yeah, so those also like either like raise or lower the cost the more amenities you have. But do you all have any questions about that regarding pricing of off-campus apartments? If not, we go ahead and move on. So next up, Jasmine.
Yeah, so the next topic we're going to talk about is basically like how to navigate the different college systems, which there are 2 main ones that we're going to be talking about. So get into that.
So I'll be talking more about the semester system. So maybe y'all are more familiar with that because high schools tend to go off of the semester system. So 2 semesters during the school year rather than for UCs that tend to be 3 quarters. So for a semester system, you'll most likely be a little bit more accustomed if you decide to go to school that's a semester system. They tend to be 16 weeks per semester. 2 semesters in the year, as I said, and a finals week. So it's typically kind of like a high school schedule. You have, your days of the week of academic and then your finals week. And with this, you're most likely recommended 15 units per semester and at least 12 units to make that financial aid mark. So you could get your financial aid. And once again, right there, as I said, full-time student needs to have 12 units. And they also have a summer semester. So if you want to do summer classes and get ahead of yourself of your schedule. And this one is typically just 6 weeks rather than a whole 16-week semester. It's a bit shorter. And semester systems tend to be a little bit more able to time manage just because of how many weeks there are in the semester compared to a quarter that only has 10 plus 1 week of finals week. And so semester systems tend to go a little bit slower just because of how it feels. It might feel like that with for you now, and quarter systems are a little bit more fast paced. So that's one thing. But maybe a con could be that you're probably tired. Like if you take a semester system, you'll be tired with your classes by the end of the semester. However, do you have more opportunities to maybe get your grade higher just because it's not so fast paced. So if you kind of have a rough start, you still have, another 10 weeks, 12 weeks in the semester to improve that grade that maybe quarter systems don't have. So that's a pro and a con of, semester system. It can be a little too long, but can also help you in your academics.
Then I'll be talking about the quarter system, and please, if you guys have any questions, ask us, because all three of us are doing the quarter system and the majority of UCs do quarter system. So basically breaking it down, it is 10 weeks per quarter. So you're going to have 3 quarters in an academic year, and each of those is going to be 10 weeks plus a finals week. So technically it's like 11, but that finals week is no classes, no nothing. It's explicitly like strictly for you to take those exams. Just like Ariana was talking about, the 15 units recommended. It's the same thing for the UCs. It's also recommended to take at least 15 units per quarter, but since you're kind of jam packing more classes throughout the year, since you have like 3 opportunities to take a select amount of units, there are like some opportunities where you can take 12, maybe if you need a break. So you're not intensely taking like 15 every quarter, because it can get really exhausting. So I bring up 12 because 12 is also the minimum that is required to receive financial aid and to be counted as a full-time student. Also, the summer session, it differs a little from the Cal States, just because it was put on the slide that there is only 1 summer session, but UCs actually do 2 summer sessions. So they span in the same amount of time, 6 weeks as well. But it's like I said, you're taking those 10 weeks and just jamming it into an even shorter amount of time. So they can be pretty intense. It is required that you take 6 units to do a summer session. But if you guys have any more questions about how to break that up, at least for Davis and for most UCs, you are allowed to participate in summer session 1 and do 3 units, and then do summer session 2 and do another 3 units. So you'll technically be completing your 6 unit requirement within the span of breaking that up.
Another thing I kind of wanted to add about the semester system versus the UC system. So in the UC, how there's 3 quarters with the semester system. They also have a winter semester, but that winter semester is optional. It's kind of like summer session where it's only 6 weeks. Versus with the UC system, you're required to do all 3 quarters. So you have to do fall, winter, and spring, versus in a semester system, you have the choice of doing fall, winter, and spring, but the only 2 mandatory ones are that you do the fall semester and the spring semester. But I'll be going over some of the pros and cons of each of these. So starting off with the quarter system, it is a lot faster paced because it is 10 weeks. So everything that you'll be learning in that 16-week period is like condensed to just 10 weeks. So everything's a lot more fast paced. It's just right, you start and you get right into all the content. So because it's faster, if you don't like a professor that you have, you won't have to deal with them for long. It's only those 10 weeks instead of like that entire 16 weeks. Because even though it doesn't sound like too much of a like time difference, the semester system is an extra month and a half versus the quarter system. So you would have to deal with that professor for an extra added month on top of the 2 months that you already have been dealing with them. So it is kind of nice because it is just very quick with them. And on top of this, since it is so much shorter, and there's 3 in a school year, you're able to complete more units in the same time span as a semester. And often we also have like so our breaks between semesters are shorter. I mean, our breaks between quarters are shorter, but our summer session, our summer break is a lot longer than semester systems. So semesters, they have their breaks more liberally applied throughout the year. But because everything is like condensed into like this short time frame, you can complete a lot more units. So you're completing 15. So if you're taking the suggested amount of units, so 15 units, those 3 quarters, you'll be taking like 45 units, while people in the semester system in that same time frame would only have had to complete around like 30. So you're taking those like extra classes. And with that, you're able to learn a variety of topics. So even though I'm a social major, I've still been able to take a lot of science classes and learn a lot of the sciences, even though it's not my general field. I was able to learn a lot that it's kind of just interesting and fun and kind of like a break from your own major. And with the shorter breaks that I was talking about, it kind of helps with preventing distractions because you don't get like, so you get a break, but you don't get too comfortable in that because you're like, oh, I have school starting in like a few weeks. So like, for instance, between our winter quarter and our spring quarter, we have a 1 week break, which it does kind of suck. That's why this is like a pro and a con because there is like a really short break between quarters, but you stay in school mode, so you're able to just like keep pushing through. But that's also based on preference. A con is that the fast pace can be very overwhelming at first, especially because a lot of high schools are typically a semester system. So that transition from a semester system to a college quarter system can be kind of hard because on top of having to adjust to the extra added rigor of a college course, you also have to adjust to having to learn in a shorter, quicker time frame. So it can be very overwhelming at first, but you can get the hang of it pretty quick. You kind of have to like forcefully adjust to it, which could be seen as a con. But because of this, you also don't have too much time to get to know your professors. It's only 10 weeks that you're with your professor, so you have to kind of really, if you want to have like a closer relationship with them, you really have to get them knocked out of the park right away because you don't have too much time and those 10 weeks go by very quick. And then you also have shorter breaks in between quarters. Kind of sucks how you mentioned that 1 week between your winter and your spring. And then between our fall and our winter, we have about, I believe it's like 2.5 weeks. So the breaks are kind of short, which kind of sucks. But another thing that I wanted to add about the quarter system is that with the fast pace, you do, oh wait, never mind, ignore that extra. But I was gonna add that with the overwhelming part of it, it kind of can give, even if you do like have like a little fallback, kind of getting back on track could be a little bit tricky because since everything is going by very fast, it's like it's a lot to get back on track, which can be very tricky. Moving on to the semester system, they are longer, so you have a lot more time to learn the material more thoroughly. Typically, quarter system, very fast, like bada bing, bada boom. But in semester system, since you do have that extra month and a half, you can pace yourself a lot more. You can really like sit down and learn the material, practice it, and have examples. But you do have to deal with those professors for longer. You have plenty of time to get to know your professors, which is really nice if you're trying to get a lot of connections, especially if you want to go into research after you finish your undergraduate education. You could build that strong connection and really have that networking that you need for your field. It leaves plenty of time to take on extracurriculars. So with that extra time, you could, your assignments are more spaced out. So you have more time to like pick up a job or an internship or just go to more club meetings, which is really nice because those are really nice things to have under your belt, especially because of the transition back into the real world. And it is an easier transition from high school when compared to the quarter system because you all are used to the semester system and you just have to get used to the rigor of the college courses rather than also having to do it a lot quicker. But moving on to the cons of it, you do have to stay with professors you don't like for a longer amount of time. So those 16 weeks may not sound long, but they do definitely drag out sometimes. My sister's in a semester system, and sometimes when she has that professor, she's just like, I don't want to be with them anymore, but you don't have that choice. Another con is that it is harder to switch your major in a semester system. Since it's only 2 semesters, typically when you want to change your major, you have to have a course within that major at the university passing. So if you want to change your major, you have to wait the entire semester to get that grade and then go through the process. Versus in a quarter system, you could only take a class in one of the quarters and then switch your major. Then the next quarter, focus on getting more classes within that major. So you could make that transition a lot more quickly versus a semester where you only have a total of 8 semesters to graduate. In a quarter system, you have 12 quarters. So those 4 extra quarters do give you a lot of leeway and being able to change your major and like kind of make like a sudden shift. And then with that also comes, it's harder to raise your GPA because since everything is kind of like spread out, once you get a big blow in one semester, trying to kind of pick up after that takes a while because you have to, so you get your grades the next semester. And then it might bring up your GPA a little bit, but since there's only so many classes that are going onto your transcripts, it could be a little bit harder to get the GPA. But another added plus, it's not on here, but kind of how I was talking about in the quarter system, how it's hard to get back on track when you fall behind. With semester system, since you do have more time, it can be easier to like get back on track if you do fall behind. Say like something happens, a family emergency, it could be a lot easier to just get back on track and get back into the rhythm of everything. But that concludes our presentation for today. Before you all head out, do you all have any questions?
I will also be dropping a Google form link in the chat. If y'all can please fill that out with your personal information so we can have a way to contact you to give you that basket Robbins. We were gonna raffle, but y'all, sat through this with us and we're amazing and asking questions and we're engaging with us, and we just want y'all to have, that $10 gift card so you can buy maybe a friend or just, just for yourself for that day. So please, I stress that y'all fill out the Google form, and thank you so much. And if y'all have any questions, don't hesitate to ask us.
Yes, and thank you so much for sticking with us today. It really did mean a lot to us. And it was also a fun way to just convey this information to you all, get you all started on decisions that you'll be having to make soon. But another quick reminder before you all leave, we are having another session next Saturday where we will be going over Let's Get Real. We'll be having some college presenters alongside us talking about their experiences as well. So next week, it's going to be more just of a conversation instead of a presentation. We're just going to be talking about our experiences with these topics. So please make sure you all drop by. It'll be a fun time.
And then also, I just wanted to say one quick thing. I think somebody already left, but we'll get to them. When you fill out the Google form that Ariana sent, use like the most relevant email you have, because I think I'm going to coordinate that with Ariana, so I can send you guys a copy of this presentation so you guys can look back at it if you still need the information. And that's all I want to say. And also, thank you for sticking with us for the presentation.
Alrighty, other than that, you all are free to go. Thank you so much for stopping by. Have a nice rest of your weekend. Enjoy your 3-day weekend. Bye.
That's fast.
Stop recording now.
Okay, so if 3 people came, then does everybody get